didn't have the live feed. And so there has been some issues.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the City Council Candidate Forum presented by AAUW River Falls and the River Falls Area Optimist Club and River Falls Community Television Channel 16. You can get Channel 16's schedule and view this forum on the city's website at www.rfcity.org. I'm Rita Kozak, your moderator, and our forum co-sponsors this evening are AAUW and the River Falls Area Optimist Club. The candidate forum tonight includes 2 candidates for mayor, 4 candidates for 2 alderperson at-large seats, and 2 candidates for alderperson District 4. The mayoral candidates are Aaron Taylor and Dan Toland. The 4 candidates for the 2 alderperson at-large seats are Jeff Bjork, Judy Foster Babcock, Scott Morissette, and Michael Page. The candidates for District 4 alderperson are Todd Bierstead and Ben Plunkett. We'll welcome questions from the audience. Please submit your questions in writing to one of the AAUW or Optimist Club members. We're going to begin this evening with opening statements, a minute long for each of the candidate, and we'll start with Mr. Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Taylor, and I'm running for mayor, as my name tag says, I think. No, it doesn't. I'm running for mayor because I would like a younger voice to, I'm not going to say be in charge of the city because the whole council kind of guides the city, but a newer generation of voice. Went to college here. I've lived here for 12 years, and I really love this area, so I want to stay here for as long as I can, and I want to help guide its future and thank the older generation for putting us in such a great state we're in right now.
Thank you. Mr. Toland.
Hi. First, I'd like to thank the AAUW and the Optimist Club for putting us on tonight. It's a great opportunity for all of us to talk. My name's Dan Toland. Me and my wife have lived here for 40 years now. We own a business in town called Anderson Windows. We've raised all, shameless plug. We've raised all our kids here. I've had the honor of being your mayor for the last 6 years, and I'd like to continue to be your mayor. I enjoy working with the community. I enjoy helping citizens with any issues or problems they have. I'd like to keep us going down the same path we're going now, constantly looking to the future for all the decisions we make now. So I'd like to continue. I think I've done a pretty good job. I'd like to also finish up on some of the projects that we've started over the last couple of years and continue on that. So,
thank you. Mr. Bjork.
Hi, my name is Jeff Bjork, and as Mayor Toland said, first of all, I'd love to thank the AAUW, American Association of University of Women, and also the Optimist Club. This is great that we have a chance to speak and for people to get to know all of us. And with that being said, I'd also like to say, boy, we have some great candidates here. 4 for alderman at large and alderperson at large, 2 for council down there at the district, and 2 for the mayor. So some great selections for people here. What I'd like to say is I've grown up in River Falls. It's been part of my family's history for about 150 years, and I want to continue that. And part of the reason when I moved back to River Falls, I was in California for about 12, 14 years, is this is my town, this is my community, and I want to keep River Falls a community base too, and part of that is listening to people and getting involved in it. And since I've came back, those have been major missions, whether I'm in the council or not, is to have community involvement.
Thank you. Ms. Foster Babcock.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak to this small group and hopefully a larger audience on our cable channel. I echo the comments that others have made about the forum provided by these 2 local organizations and the connection to the community. I appreciate both organizations, and I appreciate the other candidates. We were commenting up here to begin, it's nice for the community to have so many good choices. I decided to run for the alderperson at large position after conversations with these council members, former council members, and others in the community whose opinion I value. They encouraged me to consider getting on the ballot, which I did. I'm a River Falls resident. I grew up here. And I look forward to working with members of the community as I participate in this forum and perhaps as your alderperson. I hope you'll vote for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Morissette?
Thank you, my name is Scott Morissette. I'm Alderperson at Large candidate. I want to thank AAUW and Optimist Club as well as the other candidates. It's always good to have people interested in serving local government. Everybody comes to the council and contributes different things to the council. Over the time that I've been on the council, I think I contribute in many ways, one of them being finance. I work at a bank in my day job. And the business community, I've been involved in Rotary as the president, the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm currently on the Sunshine Fund board. In addition to that, the city committees that I've served on, I currently serve as president of the council. I've served as comptroller. I serve on the Plan Commission. I have served on the Historic Preservation and the boundary committees for Town of Troy and Town of Kinnickinnick. Very much interested in continuing to serve because I think I can contribute and keep moving the city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Page?
Excellent. Good evening, and thank you for hosting this candidate forum, and thank you all for coming to hear what we have to say. I am truly excited to be here tonight and to be a candidate for City Council in this amazing community. My name is Michael Page. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of River Falls. I was born on the west side of town, and I now live about 3 blocks away from that house that I grew up in with my wife, Emily, our 3 children, Isla, Theron, and Ellis, who are now 6, 5, and 2 years old. I graduated with the class of 1998 from River Falls High School, and then earned a bachelor's degree in philosophy from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. I attended the University of Minnesota School of Dentistry for my dental degree. I currently serve our country as a major with the Minnesota Army National Guard. I am the president of the Friends of the Kinney organization here in town, the first past president of the River Falls Lions Club, and a member of the American Legion Post 151. I joined my father in family practice on our Main Street Dental Clinic about 7 years ago now at Page Family Dentistry. I'm running for City Council Alderperson at Large because I want to serve our community in this exciting time of change.
Thank you. Mr. Bierstead?
Thank you to you two groups, and I'm just so glad to hear there's still some optimists out there somewhere. So, I've been on the council now for the last 2 years, and I've immensely enjoyed it. So, thank you for voting for me last time. I hope you'll do so again. It's a great group of people. We've accomplished some good things over the last couple of years. We have a lot of things in front of us yet, but we have done well, I believe, in the past, and I think we can continue with that. I live here in River Falls. We own and operate the laundromat here at the south end of town, but I also work in the Twin Cities in the residential construction industry, which I've been doing now for the last 32 years. And so I have a lot of experience with housing, land development, those sorts of things. So again, just happy to be a part of the process here, and been very thankful for the support and all of the teaching that these folks up here have given me over the last couple of years.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Plunkett?
Thank you. Ben Plunkett, I'm running for Alderperson District 4. Again, thanks to the River Falls Optimist Club and the AAUW for putting on the forum, to all of our audience members for attending, and to everyone who is watching the event at home. Your participation in the democratic process is very important to our success as a community. As we look at the challenges that will be facing River Falls in the coming years, River Falls is not an island separate from what is happening around us. We have a major metropolitan area that is influencing our success as a community, as well as 2 universities, essentially, two major institutes of higher education that play a very important role in our community. And I look forward to talking tonight about the role of those in maintaining and building a better future for River Falls and our region as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll start our questions now, and we'll rotate who goes first, and we'll start with Mr. Toland. And the first question is, what steps is the city taking to address infrastructure upkeep so we do not end up deferring necessary repairs or replacements?
Well, when it comes to infrastructure, we're constantly looking at, what do we need to do 20, 30, 40 years down the road. We make sure everything we do now aligns with that, if you want to look at it as a stake out there that we're trying to get to. We make sure in our budget every year that we have plenty of money in the budget that we can reasonably afford anyways, to make sure we're on top of our infrastructure all the time. We put a lot of money every year into roads, we put a lot of money every year into all of our infrastructure. It's a constant pressure on us to make sure we're staying ahead of this stuff. You know, we grade every couple of years, we do an infrastructure report card. We do studies of our sewer, our water, our electrical, our roads, and how are they looking, how are they doing. So we're constantly doing that. We're constantly working with the state on different projects for our infrastructure to make sure we're staying ahead of all of this stuff. The city does a very good job of staying ahead of that. We don't usually have to do much borrowing for that. We usually have enough funds throughout our different funds to pay for that stuff. So we do a good job of staying ahead of it. And I just want to make sure we keep doing that as we're moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Bjork.
Agree with what Mayor Tolan said there. One thing that we're very lucky, who's ever in the council or as the mayor, we have a great staff here led by Scott Simpson. And just like any good business, which the city of River Falls is a business in essence, they have a great plan put together of following everything. So like Mayor Tolan, it's the utilities, the sewer, the streets, but also the sidewalks. And we have a plan that goes through all those, describing where we're at, what the plans are in the life cycle. So what our job is really is to make sure that, on speaker, sorry, is to make sure that we're keeping them on track and that the money spent are proper. So I know I didn't have my speaker on for a while, but everything I said was positive, and you probably want to vote for me. So.
Just a reminder that the green light needs to be on so that we can hear. Okay. All right, Ms. Foster Babcock.
I'm certainly not a council member now, but I do follow the local politics and the local investment, participating in some of the forums and discussions that the city offers, and I think that's a great way to stay informed about how we manage not only our infrastructure, but our budget and finances overall as a community, because it's our dollars, right, our tax dollars, and the city's in the business of perpetuity, right? That's our long-term responsibility as a city, is to make sure that our infrastructure is strong, that our budgets are set up to address those things, and the recent planning schedule and budget documents that the city shared show that there is a good fiscal structure in place, there's a good strategy with the planning commission group and the city staff providing information to the council about how they manage those things. So I would continue to do that, and also, as Mayor Tolan mentioned, keep our eyes and ears open for those investment opportunities and partnerships with regional, national, and maybe even international partners who might want to invest in our community and make our infrastructure stronger. The university's done a great deal of investment in their own facilities, and so that has been also a benefit to the community, which I think we leverage. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morissette.
Infrastructure is obviously a big topic, and staying on top of it is key. When I first came on the council, we were just beginning to work on our CIP, capital improvement plan, and staff has done a fantastic job, as those have pointed out already, about prioritizing all the buildings, all the structures, all the assets the city own, and figuring out when we might need to replace a roof, or need to replace a fire truck, or replace a truck, snowplow truck. So we have a lot of good foresight out into the future to do those types of things. One thing that I think that the mayor pointed out is we do a lot with roads. Roads are expensive. People like to drive on nice roads. People complain a little bit when we do the chip sealing with the little rocks during the summer, but that does extend the life. And the important thing about the roads is that we don't bond for them. We pay cash for our roads here in River Falls, which is different even some of our communities to the north. We have a lot of infrastructure projects coming up. North Sewer Interceptor. The electric building was just done over by the power plant. Public safety building needs to be done, the fire department. Glen Park is coming up. So there's a whole lot of different projects that we have to keep tabs on and live within our means. That's a very important piece that I believe in. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Page.
Thank you. Infrastructure is absolutely of paramount importance in our community. You drive around to other local communities, you go down the road 10, 15 miles further into Wisconsin to smaller communities that are not as fortunate as our community is here to have the wealth that we have here in the city of River Falls to able to maintain our infrastructure. You drive on our roads, you walk on our sidewalks, you see that we are doing a good job of maintaining them. And it's also important for the city to receive feedback from our residents as well as from people visiting our community as far as what they would like to see in infrastructure upgrades. The city has done a great job with the parks planning process in what they're about to implement with improvements to the infrastructure of our parks, which are a huge asset to our community and are included in that infrastructure. I would say that the most important thing with infrastructure is planning to implement, including all of the planning at once and seeing a big picture as you're doling out the finances for infrastructure improvements, such as the electrical building upgrade, which went forward prior to Kinney Corridor planning, which could have helped inform the location or size or placement of such a structure. But incorporating all of these planning process with infrastructure upgrades is very important to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bierstead.
Boy, it's hard to know how to keep adding to that, isn't it? When I first got on the council, most of these things I knew very little about because you drive through town and you don't think about where the water comes from and where it goes when it leaves your home, things like that. But I've been incredibly impressed with how well things have been run here over the past several years. And so all I can say is the staff and the council prior to my involvement have done a very, very good job here. And I expect that we would keep on doing the same thing. So with that, I'll hand it off to Ben.
Thank you. As we look at the current infrastructure in River Falls, there are areas where we are in need of improvement. Our sidewalks are oftentimes not maintained to the degree that is necessary for those that are handicapped to use them for their desired purposes. Our roads in many of our residential neighborhoods are much wider than is needed for the residents and the people passing through, resulting in runoff into our Kinnickinnick River and increasing the water temperature in that watershed. Our long-term infrastructure plan needs to take into account the realities of cost, as well as doing a better job of planning for what our needs are, avoiding excess spending in what is commonly the most expensive area, one of the most expensive areas of our government. In addition, as we look towards the future of River Falls, we need to plan for a future where mass transit will play a role in connecting our community to the larger one of Minneapolis-St. Paul. This is going to involve a change in how we do planning and zoning, as well as how we do things such as sidewalk maintenance, which in many areas is currently not adequate. I believe that we have opportunities to save money there while delivering better quality services to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
So what steps is the city taking to keep up its infrastructure? I'm trying to think back to my 2 years on council, 2014 to 2016. And like Mayor Toland was saying, the city grades the alleyways, the roads, the sewer, grades everything every couple of years, and I think that's a fantastic job of doing it. We'll look at the lowest grade project, and if it's something that we want a higher grade in, we'll put more money into that. And everyone sees during the summer, during the warmer months, when there's chip sealing or they're going around tarring the road, trying to extend the life of it by 10, 20 years. I think that's a very good use of the budget. But going off of what Mr. Plunkett said, I live in District 4, and I noticed a lot of our residential areas are just lacking in sidewalks. I like to run outside during the spring and summer, and quite often I'm dodging traffic because people aren't paying attention to me for one reason or another. So when I was on council, I had a few letters sent to me of people complaining about that, and that's something that I would like to delve further into if I was elected mayor, making it safer for pedestrians.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Bjork, we'll start this question. Please describe your fiduciary responsibility to the residents of River Falls.
Good question. Don't want to just start jumping out. I think my responsibility on that is to make sure that they get a fair value for the dollar they're spending. So every tax dollar that is taxed or given or asked of the citizens of River Falls, they should get a equal value back. So my job is to make sure on the council that I'm asking that my fellow council members and the staff of the city, what are we spending for it? You know, some people, it does bother me when I hear people, don't worry, it's just tax money or it's just from the government. Well, that's our money. And I really think it's our responsibility to take care of that. So if somebody's going to give us $1, we should give them $1 of value back.
Thank you. Ms. Foster Babcock?
Thank you. So the fiduciary responsibility of an elected official is very well spelled out in the statutes, but it really comes down to the integrity and conversations and transparency. And I think River Falls as a city really shares information well through their public forums and is very transparent about how they get revenue, not only from taxes, but also from service fees and other income from utilities and so on, and that they then show how they spend that budget, and they publish that available in the library or in the paper and on their website. And so I think that as a council member, you then are responsible to review those items as they come into the budget, and when spending approval above a certain amount, which is set by the council as well, comes to the council, that appropriate questions are asked, as Jeff said, to be sure that there is integrity in the decision-making and transparency in the spending. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Morse?
I maybe take a simpler, somewhat simple approach to it, but there's really three things in addition to the fiscal responsibility, but it's the health, safety, and welfare of the city are really the three filters that I think the council has to use when we're making decisions. Are we providing safe streets and safe roads and sidewalks? Are we providing healthy drinking water and sanitary sewer systems? Are we making sure that our police and fire are in place? These are the core things that, as a council, we're charged with making sure happen. So that's really the filter by which I look at every decision that's made, along with the fiscal one. I jokingly tell people that it's OPM. It's other people's money. It's not the council. So when we spend money, I make a decision that we have to do it in the best interest of the citizens and the taxpayers who provide that fund. So that's how I look at the fiduciary responsibilities. Thank you.
Dr. Page?
Wow, this is awesome following all these guys and answering this question. They're all amazing responses so far. I feel that fiduciary responsibility as a city council member is of the utmost importance. These are other people's money that we are spending, as well as our own dollars that we're spending. And nobody wants to drive around the city and see things happening and ask the question of why are we spending everybody's money on this project or that project? We want things to be funded in town for a reason, and that's the city council's job. The city council is like the watchdog of everyone's tax dollars that are earmarked for the city, and I think that it's very important to be responsible with those funds.
Thank you. Mr. Bierstedt?
Well, and sometimes, and Michael made a good point that we see projects going on in town and people wonder how that's being paid for, but the flip side is sometimes people wonder why things aren't being done too. And again, it's up to us to manage the finances, balance those safety and health issues with the reality of tax dollars available to us. So I take it very seriously when we vote to spend some money, because I know part of it's coming from me and part of it's coming from my neighbors. And I just want to make sure that we're making good decisions for everybody. And even at times where things are very emotional to some people, we still have to keep a level head up here and still make a good decision for everyone in the city.
Thank you. Mr. Plunkett?
Thank you. Fiduciary responsibility as a councilman should take into account a recognition of where our funds are coming from and the impact that property taxes can have on local residents. Property taxes are by their nature a regressive form of taxation. The people with the lowest income pay the highest as a percent of their income for property taxes. As such, I think that it is important that the council examines ways of increasing revenue from other sources. There are several opportunities that will be presenting themselves to the city in the coming years to do such. And I think that the city should be examining those and building upon them. In my history prior to running for this office, I was a member of the Pierce County Board of Supervisors. Often in that position, I have voted against capital projects that I felt did not deliver a return to the taxpayer in accordance with their cost. It is difficult as a member of a council to be the sole vote against those projects or to not agree. Groupthink is something that is oftentimes present in decisions, and I will work to represent the interests of the residents and not those of maintaining cordial relationships with my friends on the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
So I'm going to take kind of an approach to this of what I would take with my own personal life, and I have a little list of things that I do. The first thing, like if this city would need something, the residents want something, is how much do we want it? And if we need it, then we'll go on to the next step, is we're going to look for the best value for the dollar, the tax dollar, or wherever this money's going to come from. And then kind of taking a step back and getting a mile-high view of, so we're going to add a new law enforcement officer. That's not just a cost of 1 year. That's a cost for however long we have that new police officer that we're going to have to work into the city's budget, that's going to increase the tax levy for forever, or we're going to have to find different funding for forever for it. And then once we go through all of those steps, we're going to figure out where the money is coming from. Are we going to tax more? Are we going to look for grants? Are we going to look for state or federal funding, some matching stuff, which the city is very good at doing? We save the residents tons of money off of their property taxes by looking for matching grants. So that's kind of the view I would look at it. I'm not saying that I would be the one making the decision, because I wouldn't be. It's the whole council and ultimately the residents who get to pick what the city has and what we don't have.
Thank you. Mr. Tolan?
Well, it's never fun going last. These guys have pretty much covered everything. But, I agree with everything everybody said. Financially, it's one of our biggest responsibilities. The money we get from all our citizens is very important to us. We take a very hard look at how we're going to spend it. We have a great finance department in the city, which helps us a lot. We make sure, we said, okay, we have to do this, this, and this, and these are what we're willing to pay for this, this, and this. That's why we do a lot of requests for information, a lot of requests for purchase prices and everything from all these different people that do stuff for the city. And there's plenty of times we don't get what we want, so we'll do it over. We won't do the project now. We'll wait and try again to get the price we want. I personally, as a business owner, know that, we only have so much money to work with, and we know the citizens want the services that we provide now. They want the best of that. So we got to make sure we're giving the best services and the best city we can give them for the money we have. If we have $5, we can only spend $5. We can't spend $6. So the council and the city staff takes that very seriously. I know I do anyways, so.
Thank you. Our third question, Ms. Foster Babcock. How would you handle comments, calls, or communication from residents of River Falls, especially those you don't politically align with or agree with?
Common calls for communication are people reaching out to share with you something that's important to them, that aligns with their values. And while it might be different than what I believe, I still think it's very, very important to listen to those voices, understand where they're coming from, to ask probing questions, and try to seek the heart of the issue. What's really at stake for them? What are they really trying to find out? Or what are they really trying to share? And being sure to use a response method that it frames the question, like you're telling me, or I hear you saying, things like that. So just using an open communication style. And it really doesn't matter to me because these are nonpartisan roles, what people's political views are. I think every voice in the community who votes and pays taxes here is important.
Thank you. Mr. Morissette.
I make it a policy as best as I can to return every email that I receive, to return every phone call that I receive, and to listen to what folks have to say. A lot of times what's important to those people, whether it's about snow plowing or the dams or those types of situations. I remember talking to a resident who had a problem with a yard that was behind him that was a junk house. The person had moved out and it had gone bad. Those are the kind of things that really impact the citizens, and getting back to them and responding and listening to their concerns. There are times you can't do much about it. There's times we can do a lot about it. I would love to see more participation from citizens with their elected officials. Too many times people don't call, don't say anything. People that I know have not called me after they've had an issue and I found out about it, and I've asked them, why didn't you call me? You know who I am. I hope you voted for me. That's what I'm here for. And so sometimes people feel that they just can't reach out, and they should never feel that way, regardless of their point of view. I don't have an agenda. I've never had an agenda, so I'm always willing to listen to every side of the argument and then make the best decision that's in front of me. So that's how I would handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Page.
As a city council member, I would take calls from constituents with open ears. I would listen to their concerns. I would discuss topics with them at length. I already do this routinely throughout my day. I work in a setting where I see 50, 60 people a day coming through my office and have conversations with all these people about everything going on in our community, whether it's at the city level, the county level, or even state and national politics. Listening to people and what their concerns are, what their thoughts are, what they would like to see happen in our community, that is the point of having a city council. We are here, we are elected by the local citizens in order to represent those citizens in a board that is going to make decisions for our community. And so we need to listen to people that are talking to us, especially in the simplest forms of communication via email and phone calls, and really take to heart what they have to say and bring that information and their feedback back to the city council and share with our fellow council members of what feedback we're hearing from the community. Because like Mr. Morissette said, I mean, people don't actively engage enough with the city council. I've seen that over the last 4 years in my active engagement in this community, that more and more people need to get off of the bench and become involved. And the more that the council and the representatives listen to them, the more people will come and be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bierstedt.
Well, it was said earlier, too, that our position is nonpartisan, and I believe we all make every effort to keep it that way. I don't think that enters into our decisions much at all. I know it doesn't for me. Again, I see us as managers of the city, and that's got to be for the best, looking out for the best interests of everyone, not any particular group. So, but I would also echo what Scott said. I rarely hear from anyone, except before the last council meeting. I heard from a lot of people. And I didn't respond to the ones that were coming from California and Texas and in Phoenix and, wherever I got those letters from. But yeah, I wish there was more engagement. I rarely hear from anyone.
Thank you. Mr. Plunkett.
I love talking about politics and about local issues that impact people. Unfortunately, as many people up on the stage tonight have noted, we often do not hear from people involving these local issues. In the past, when I have, I respond to those people. I tell them the dates of the meetings where information that is going to be relevant to the topic that they're asking is, and I invite them to come and make public comment and to talk to the other members of the council. But more than that, I think that there is potential in River Falls for creating more dialogues about the political process and what we are doing in the city. And I think that that is beneficial for the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
When I was on council, I got emails, phone calls, believe it or not, some handwritten letters. and meeting invites, and I would always respond. If I got a hand-mailed letter, I would write a letter back, maintain correspondence. I would call back. I would set up meetings. I would email back. I would try to keep it within a couple days, maybe a little bit longer for snail mail. And most of the time, well, some of the time it would be on topics that I agreed with. Some it would be I disagreed with, but I would never come off hostile, and I that doesn't get us anywhere. We don't want to be divisive. So I would go in with an open mind. I would listen to them. They would listen to me. Not saying we would come to an agreement, but we would come to an understanding. And as mayor, even more so, I think it would be it's a necessary policy to have an open door policy. If a member of the community wants to meet with you about something that's important to them, it would also be important to me, because they're not just paying for it, they're part of our community, and we want to be inclusive of everyone. So that's my view on how I would handle any correspondence I got, how I would handle people with differing views.
Thank you. Mr. Toland?
Well, since I've been mayor now, that's one part of the job I really enjoy is communicating with citizens and trying to help them down whatever path they're trying to figure out. My door is always open. If anybody gets a hold of me, whether it's email, phone, whatever way they get a hold of me, I'll try to get back to them as soon as I can. It doesn't matter if I think what they're talking about is important. It doesn't matter if they think what they're talking about is important or not. I look at everything they want as very important. So if I don't know the answers, I'll be the first to tell them I don't know. And I'll make sure I get them the person that knows what they need to know, whether that's our engineering department, whether it's our financing department. But if I know, I will let them know. If they have to come in and see me, that's no problem. I'll set up an appointment with them, and they can come in and see me, and we can sit down and talk as long as they need to talk, so we can figure something out. If it's something coming on at a council meeting like everybody else says, I'll point them to their council meeting and have them come and express whatever concern they may have to the council. It's you know, and as long as everybody else too, I've always encouraged people to please, any questions you have, any issues you have, please get a hold of us. And me, like everybody else, I don't hear from as many people as I thought I would, which is kind of surprised me. So of course I assume, well, we're doing such a good job that people don't have any complaints. But I still always encourage anybody, no matter what it is, please get a hold of us or one of your council members. That's one of our biggest jobs here, is to make sure you guys get the answers you need. So.
Thank you. Mr. Bjork?
I love this question in a sense, because it's part of what's made me successful in business, is grabbing and listening to people. And it's an old adage, but God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I tend to ask questions and do a lot of listening. And I think that's part of the reason that I've had success in the opportunities that I have been given. So when here in the city, I really do appreciate different opinions of mine. And I'll use an example. We had a big topic going on that we had to vote on last council meeting. I loved listening to all. I went into the topic not knowing what my answer was going to be, and I was listening to all the different sides I could on that, encouraging people to share information. I wrote back, if they were from the city, like Alderman Bierstead said, there was a campaign to get lots of letters to us, but 2/3, 3/4 of them were from outside of the state. And I didn't respond to them, but if they were from the city or from the area, I was responding back to them. And I want those different opinions. And I also, and anybody that wrote me or asked or called me, they know that I'm getting back to them. I've gone and met with people in person. I love a different opinion and a different answer, because I know I don't necessarily have the right answer coming in or going out necessarily. Well, going out I will, because I'm going to get those comments and that. And I don't, and I'm not trying to make any reference to anything, but I don't listen to the loudest group. I listen to the group that shares and gives us the information and answers questions. So I hope more people do that, and I hope there's more encouragement. My door, my phone, my email is always available to people, and I want to do the best I can for the city of River Falls, the residents here.
Thank you. Mr. Morissette, as we attract new business and industry to River Falls, what is the city doing to address the lack of affordable housing in River Falls?
Good question. Housing and economic development go hand in hand. We cannot attract new businesses with the workforce today if we don't have housing of all levels. We are in the middle of looking at a housing study. We've got a housing study ordered. I believe we're getting it back in the next month or so. I want to give specific kudos to Mr. Bierstead as the chairperson of the Housing Authority in town and the work that he's done on that committee. If we look at the housing needs in town, intuitively we know that we are probably lacking low to moderate income housing very badly in town. We did have a project come in front of the council on the 700 South Main block, which most people refer to as the McEwen block. That project came to us a little quickly. I think the council wasn't comfortable with a few things. In general, we support those activities, and I do believe that developer is coming back, so there's a step there. I believe that the council should provide avenues to help encourage that. We have a housing fund. We use that money for Habitat for Humanity, another project for low-income housing. There is some money in that fund as Habitat pays back that debt, and then the apartments right over here across from Division is also a part of that deal. So we've got a lot of different things going there. As a last resort, as a very last resort, the city should then look at providing housing. But I don't. My philosophical point of view is the city should not fiddle in the marketplace when there are developers out there. Sorry for running over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Page.
No, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Morissette. That was excellent information. While I am not as well versed in what the city is currently doing for affordable housing, I can tell you that low to moderate housing in the city of River Falls right now is in a shortage. I mean, I know numerous families that are moving to town that are not able to afford homes in the city of River Falls within their income range. And I don't just mean the low income housing apartments for single individuals or couples, but small families, parents with 2 or 3 children are not able to find homes within the city of River Falls. And so they're opting instead to purchase homes outside of our community or in neighboring communities, and then interacting with the city of River Falls but not being able to live here because they're priced out of the market. So there is definitely a shortage that does need to be addressed. I'm glad that it's on the city's radar. I think it will be a very important topic moving forward, both in the development of low and moderate income housing from the apartment perspective, but also in well planned out developments that include a mix of housing available for different income levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bierstead.
If I knew the answer to that question, isn't it something? We always struggle with it. I've had a sneak peek at this study that's Mr. Morissette referred to, and it's not ready for public consumption yet, but I think we're going to be not pleasantly surprised, but we're going to be surprised by the amount of information we're going to get about the state of housing here in not only in River Falls, but the surrounding areas. So I'm really looking forward to that, because in my mind, that sort of information is crucial in planning everything that we do here. And to the point about economic development, if we're inviting companies into the city that can't afford to pay their employees enough to live here, we might need to think about that a little bit. And so I think there's a lot of things that are intertwined here. A lot of things have to work together. I'm just so thankful that we finally have some information in our hand. And I know we can't hang our hats on predictions 20 years out, but I think there's a lot of demographic information in this upcoming study that will help us understand what's going on and what we can do as the city to prepare for it. I don't think the city can be in a position of building housing. I don't think that's what our business is about, but at least we can understand what needs to be there so we can do our part in the process.
Mr. Plunkett.
Thank you. The River Falls Comprehensive Plan defines affordable housing as, I believe, and I may be wrong on the exact figure, but $160,000 for a housing unit. The reality is that 50% of our population makes less than $15 an hour. There is no way that even 3 or 4 people are able to afford a $160,000 house at that sort of wage. And that is, if we look at the statistics, what real people that are working in our community are being paid. Currently, in our zoning plan, we have a low and a medium density single-family residential district. By adding a high-density single-family residential district that is close to our downtown areas, in areas that are currently vacant, we can design that in such a way that market builders can deliver housing at a lower cost than the target figure in the River Falls Comprehensive Plan and meet the needs of residents in our community that are currently not being met.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
So the housing issue is something that I'm dealing with currently. I've been looking for a house in River Falls for the past 2 summers, and like most of the candidates up here have said, it's tough for somebody who has student loans, has all the normal bills that anyone would have to afford even a $160,000 low-income house. By the time one of them comes up, it's sold, or it's a old college dumpy house that I don't want to start a family in. So while I think it's necessary, we need it, it is the city's responsibility to work with developers to do something to attract them, where the people who will be living in those houses and paying the property taxes, helping keep our property taxes low, they'll be getting a good benefit even if the city has to give them something in return. I don't think it's the city's responsibility to go build houses using other taxpayers' money to help support medium or low-income housing. But from my time and from my conversations with the city, we do a really good job of planning our residential zones. We're open to developers. We only turn them away if they aren't going to give us what we want, or we say come back to us later, and in my experience, they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Toland?
Yeah, as is mentioned before, we are just finishing up a housing study, and obviously I don't think that anybody's surprised is going to, it'll let us know that we are very short on housing of all kinds, medium to low income, obviously. And I agree with the other candidates that, the city isn't in the business of building housing, but we are in the business of working with developers, and we always work with developers, trying to help them with whatever they need, whether it's to get tax credits from the government to help them build low-income housing, which is hard to do. It's not as simple as it sounds. So we're always working with developers to try to help them with that. Plus, as economic development was brought up too, it's hard to expect businesses to come here if we don't have the housing for that. So as a city, we're constantly working with developers, and we're constantly working on ideas of how we can, if a developer has one certain plan they really want to do, the staff will work on their options with them to create the kind of housing that we really need. So it's something we're always looking at, we're always working on. It's not a fast process, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's something we're constantly working on, so we'll just keep working on it.
Thank you. Mr. Bjork?
Yep, great topic. It's something that we all have to have open eyes on it, and I'm not trying to sound like a economist, but it's really supply side economics and a big factor of it. Businesses come here if they have the labor forces to do it. Businesses will not come here if they don't have the businesses or the people that will come here. So we have to work on both sides of them, but we have to do it correctly. So as I think it was Alderman Morissette said, that there was an opportunity down in the McCune property on South Main that somebody came in and wanted to put in a big structure. It wasn't right. There wasn't enough parking. There wasn't enough everything. So the council did the right thing and saying, come back another time when you have it right, or don't come back at all. So we have an important job that we have to do to make sure that the right buildings and the right opportunities, structures are put together. Also, we have a very unique situation here in River Falls compared to any of the neighboring towns except for maybe Menominee or Eau Claire, but we're a university town. So let's think about this. Ben mentioned something about the low income. 34% of the people that we have in this town right now, city residents, will not be here in 2 years at the next time there's an election. They're either going to move away because of the university, they're going to move away because they're going off to college, they're going to be deceased, or they're going to be going to a different job. Think about 34%. That's over a third of the voting population right now. The people that are here in this town will not be here. So we have to be careful because some of those are low-income people right now, and they're counted in low-income standards. So we have to be careful with that of how we're gauging things. So there's a big story. Don't say River Falls is the same as Hudson or is the same as something else. There's unique situations within our community.
Thank you. Ms. Foster Babcock.
No, this is a complicated topic, and I think all of the folks that have spoken before me, I echo the person who said it's hard to go last and think of something different or the same. But I appreciate that the city has invested in the housing study and that their comprehensive plan does look ahead. And I think that those practices as a city are something that we need to continue. Certainly, cities struggle if they get into the housing providing business, but they do, as others have said, work to set up the proper zoning and to provide a welcoming environment to developers who want to provide housing stock in whatever levels, and work with them to make sure those projects meet the standards that the city has set so that we continue to have a very viable and vibrant community that does attract people to stay here, live here with their families as they grow old and retire, whatever stage they're at. And I agree with Jeff, we do have a population that's transient, but they come and go pretty steadily within that 34%. So even though it's not the exact same person to be here to vote, there will be someone who's in that demographic here to vote who needs a house. And so we need to be sensitive to providing spaces for those people as they come through, because they add something to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Page, if elected, what is your priority for the city for the next 2 years?
Well, absolutely, when elected to the city council, my main priority will be ensuring that the Kinney Corridor planning process moves forward with removal of the 2 dams from the Kinnickinnic River much sooner than the currently planned 2-decade time frame. The opportunity we have today to restore a free-flowing Kinnickinnic River and Junction Falls waterfall right in the heart of our community is absolutely amazing. It's truly the greatest opportunity for transformation that our community has ever seen. Delaying this opportunity for our community comes at a substantial cost, both financially and ecologically, a cost that the current resolution that the City Council passed at just their last meeting or the meeting before lays on the shoulders of our children 20 years from now. We cannot afford to delay the removal of the upper dam another 2 decades before our community reaps the benefits of this opportunity. The most popular, cost-effective, and least expensive option currently available to our community is license surrender. And this option has not yet been adequately considered. The operation of the hydros over the last 30 years has been a wash. Further investments made at this time in our hydros truly will never be recouped. Public support has weighed in heavily in favor of the restoration of the Kinnickinnic River, and the scientific facts tell us that the removal of the 2 dams from the Kinnickinnic River is the right thing to do. Our community has already decided that removing the 2 dams and restoring the river is the right thing to do, and now is always the right time to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bierstead.
A lot of time was spent studying the Kinney and the dams and other associated features. And I think it was probably the most well-prepared for decision that we've made in a long time here. And so I think what the City Council did was right. I think what the Utility Advisory Board did was right in their decision-making. And so I think everybody's in agreement that someday the dams will go away. I think that's a given. But everything's got to be paid for. And as I said in the council meeting, our job is to manage a number of things. It's not just one topic. Excuse me. We've got the fire hall, the EMS, the police department. We've got a number of other projects that are just as important to everyone as the Kinney project is to some of the people here. And so we have to balance all of that. And we're not ignoring it by any means. In fact, I think we acted very wisely on it at our last council meeting, but it's not the only topic we have to deal with here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Plunkett?
My primary goal over 2 years would be to leave the city of River Falls better than I found it when coming in as a council person. And I think that everyone that has served on this board in the past and that is running for this office now would really recognize that as something that they have done. The reason that we have the city that we have today is because of many wise decisions by many people. To ensure such, I am focused on zoning and planning and reducing costs in certain areas involving our roads, and improvements as far as affordable housing through zoning. And there's something else that I was going to be talking about here that I forgot. As well as electoral participation from our residents. If we want to ensure that River Falls has political power in our greater community, we need to ensure that our residents are able to vote in our elections and participate in these, not just for the local elections, but for the national and state elections. As our residents, including that 34% that some have labeled transient, are participatory in our democracy, it ensures that funds from the federal and state government are available for us here in the city to use. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
So this is kind of a big general goal that I have for the next 2 years, is keeping the city's portion of property taxes as low as they can be while maintaining our still quality services that the city has. And doing this, it could be done by keeping the transient population here, the people who go to college here. Most of my friends who went to college with me here wanted to stay living here. Some of us still do. Some of us couldn't afford to, so they had to move away. There goes property tax dollars that could have flattened out the cost curve if they would have stayed. Could be new housing developments, people coming in, other sources of income. Who knows what that would be? But the biggest thing is keeping the property taxes low, because who doesn't like to have more money in their pocket? They could spend more downtown. They could have better things that they want, just be generally happier. So that's my main priority. It's kind of a big thing to do. It encompasses everything. But, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tolan?
Let's see, priorities for 2 years. I guess my biggest priorities would be to continue to keep looking to the future. As a city, we've been doing a great job of that. We got to make sure everything we do now aligns with where we want to be in 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. We got to make sure we keep looking down that road, make sure we're doing everything the best way we can. We got to make sure that our infrastructure growth continues to keep pace with our industrial and our the way the city grows too. We can't get behind on that. That's a big priority. We want to make sure we continue to work with anybody that comes to town and wants to open any kind of business. We got to make sure we continue to work with them and take any obstacles out of their ways that we possibly can, as we do now. I want to continue to work with that. The city's in great shape, it really is. I just want to make sure that we stay focused on the big picture and not get sidetracked by all these little things happening that don't concern us so much as a city and running this great city that we have. So that's kind of what my priorities are.
Thank you. Mr. Bjork?
Yeah, I think my priority would be responsible growth. River Falls is in a unique situation, or maybe a somewhat unique situation. We're a university town and we're very close to a metropolitan area. The city council, or this chamber, or this city hall to downtown St. Paul is less than 30 miles away. We're going to have opportunities come to us whether we want them to or not. We have to make sure we go through and select the right ones, the ones that make sense for us as a community. We also want to, I want to make sure that we give a value back to the citizens. They're giving us the opportunity to make their life better, make their quality of life here in River Falls better. Let's make sure that we do a good job with that. And part of that is having an open dialogue. So we've talked about talking and listening, but I think we need to listen, and sometimes that listening isn't just with the ears, but it's observing and seeing what's going on and asking questions. So, and as Alderman Bierstead said too, it's not just one issue. When you're sitting in this council seat, you have a lot of things that are coming to you, whether it's the Kinney Connect River, or if it's a street, or it's a building, or it's whatever's out there, you have to pay attention to it. So it's not one dimension. You can't go in this as a one issue candidate. You have to realize that. So there's a whole bunch of things coming to you. It's great to have passion, but you have to have passion for this whole community, everybody, every resident in here, this city, that's 16,000 some. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Foster Babcock.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to priorities. You know, it's an interesting process, and I think some of the other council members already offered this. To come in with your own priorities or your own agenda is probably not the right approach. It is important to have an understanding of what's going on in the city, but I think that in order to look ahead, as Mayor Tolan said, we would rely on the comprehensive plan and be informed by the strategic planning the city's already done, and look at those things as new opportunities for a growing Western Wisconsin community come through, and be able to respond to them, be responsive to the developers, be responsive to the businesses, to understand the needs of the citizens, and set then priorities that match up with those requests rather than coming to the table with a particular set of priorities. I do think it's important for the city to continue to invest in economic development. They've done a great job on that. I think the housing study and balancing the housing stock and supporting developers is going to be important, but it has to be balanced with investment in releasing the Kinney from the bondage of the dams that my family was part of implementing, you know, when we were settled in River Falls as a foster back in the day. And I hope that we are able to do that faster than 20 years, but I think it's going to be a balance with all the other priorities that the city faces. And we'll have to work as a council to do that thoughtfully and in response to the citizens rather than running our own agendas.
Thank you. Mr. Morissette.
Well, I made a comment earlier about fiduciary responsibilities and how I view that responsibility, and the next 2-year goal kind of mirrors that: health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. I've got just a couple of things marked down here that I want to talk about that I think are going to be they're going to happen in the next 2 years or need to happen. Glen Park is going to be redone in 2019. We heard loud and clear from the citizens through a survey that they wanted Glen Park to be redone. So we're addressing that. Two of the bigger projects that need to be addressed, the one is the Highway 65 division jug handle project that's going to happen in 2020, I hope. In the last 3 years, there have been 12 serious accidents up on that bypass, and it needs to happen. That jug handle needs to come down. We're working with the DOT. Those are safety issues. South Main Street is another one we're working with the DOT on right now. They want to keep the speed limit a little higher. We'd like to see it come down a little lower. North Sewer Interceptor is in process right now. Everything that feeds, the wastewater that feeds from the north side of town comes through one point, and that equipment is reached its useful life. And that's incredibly important for the welfare of the north side of town, as well as the economic development that happens up there. Economic development is a big thing, and I think when we talk about economic development, everybody thinks about the big businesses out in the industrial park. Not so. I hope you've read in the newspaper about the project that the city has partnered with the movie theater. We do not just go for big businesses, we also look for small businesses. I see my time's up, so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bierstead, as a candidate, what do you bring to the council that's unique to you versus your opponents?
Well, that's a great question. You know, I work in an industry where experience is a really big deal. And, you know, even though I've not had a lot of experience on the city council yet, anyway, I have been around the industry that we're making an awful lot of reference to here tonight for a long time. I've been around housing and land development and working with local governments on development agreements and such. And so I think, and I've heard a lot of mention of it here too, I think understanding how all of that works understanding what the city can do in that environment, such as zoning. We can't manage all of the regulations that are out there. We can manage our building permit fees and a few things like that. But land planning and zoning, we can manage here. And those can be some real key factors in getting the densities that we need to get the housing stock that we need. And I don't know how much thought has been given to that, but again, I'm excited about this study because I think the study is going to help us understand who our buyers are, who our potential citizens are here, and then we can, I think, do a much better job of planning. So that's what I love to do, and so hopefully I can be a big part of that.
Thank you. Mr. Plunkett?
I'm personally really interested in urban planning and development. It's an issue that I've studied for 20 years seriously since I first took a class at the U of M that was taught by Professor Von Drassic, who was a great person, taught me about the history of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area. And through studying that history, it was a great lesson in how cities develop and how we can do planning for future development. I continue those studies today. I look at what other metropolitan areas and other regions have done to encourage responsible development. And I think that some of the ideas that I present are not ideas that originate from me, but simply ones that I have learned from reading a variety of sources and materials over the years. And I hope to be able to apply some of that knowledge for the benefit of the citizens in our future community.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
So what would I bring to the table which the other candidate doesn't, though it's pretty obvious, is the generational viewpoints.
Call me old again?
Not calling you old. Just a different upbringings. I've lived in 3 metropolitan areas, with the biggest one I lived in, I think, had 20 million people living in it, in Los Angeles. That was a long time ago. I was brought up differently than I'm guessing Dan was. So it's a different viewpoint, different, I'm not going to say different goals. We both have level heads. We both have passion. We both love River Falls. We want to see it succeed. And I'm not saying either of us will do a terrible job or a better job, but it will be a younger generation's view on things, looking towards a future for, I'm not even going to put a time span on how much longer I'm going to be alive, but a further out time. Hope I didn't offend you by
No. It's okay. I know I'm getting old.
Well, you did me. I'm the same age.
Yeah.
Mr. Toland?
Oh, I think some of my experiences make me a good candidate. As a business owner, I know all about financial responsibility. I know that I have a limit. We have limited amounts of money to spend, and it's your money to spend. That we are financially responsible with that, and I take what's the word I'm looking for? I take great care with that. The other, my willingness to, it doesn't matter who gets elected on either side of the aisle with the state, federal government. My willingness to work with anybody is part of what I do. I mean, it doesn't matter what their ideas are, what their thoughts are, or what they think should be this or should be that. I'm one of the guys that have to work with them to get what's best for the city of River Falls. And I'm willing to do that. I have no problem with that. And my ability to keep looking out into the future. And I know I keep going back to that, but I can't emphasize how important that is for a smaller city like us to keep looking into the future. So those are some of the things where I think will make me a better. Plus, when it comes to experience too, working with staff and knowing how staff works here and how all the processes go, that helps a lot too. So that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Bjork?
Well, right away, I have to say, you said opponents. And I have to say, I look down here, I don't see any opponents. I see people that all have the same passion as I do, that want to make this city, continue to keep this city going in a positive direction and be a community that we're proud of, and that we're proud to be in, and that we live in, and that our future generations. So, guys, I don't look at you opponents. I look at it, we're striving for the same goal, maybe different ways to get there. I think part of the reason that I would be a good candidate and I would appreciate your vote is I've had success in all the businesses and that I've been in, and part of that is making sure that I listen to you, the people, you, the team, you, the community. So I don't want to turn those off. And as I said before, I want those different opinions. I realize every coin has more than two sides to it. It also has what's around it, and there's a whole bunch. So I want to take in as much as I can. So my listening skills is important, and I've been schooled in that. And I'm also this person, and it might sound weird to you, but I've been on the council for 2 years on the payroll, if you want to say. But I've grown up with the council. So I was that little nerdy kid when he was in 4th and 5th grade. I'd go down to the old city council and listen in just amazement of what was going on. So I've been around this for a long time, and I've listened to it, and I realize there's things that have happened in the past, both good and bad, that we need to learn from, and we need to take advantage of why that was done or why it wasn't done. So, and I don't want to repeat mistakes, and I want to do something. And one other thing, Aaron brought up that he was in Los Angeles. I also have big city experience too. I lived in Detroit for a number of years. I lived in Los Angeles for 10, 12 years, and I also lived in the Twin Cities. But this is where I was born. This is where I'm at now, and this is where I will die, and hopefully not soon. But River Falls is my hometown.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Foster Babcock.
I appreciate everybody's comments. What I bring is one of the obvious things, I guess, compared to the other gentlemen on the panel, and I'll leave it at that. That's a perspective that is different, but I hope that after a 30-year career in insurance and risk management, I also bring a deep business acumen and a lot of training in strategic planning and collaborating with people who do think differently than I do, that do bring different experiences to the table. And so I think that passion and that compassion are something that can help us navigate the issues that face the city, the opportunities that come forward. And so I just would like to say that I think that that's something that is unique. I bring that to the table.
Thank you. Mr. Morissette.
As a child, we lived here, and I was happy to see both the librarian that I used to go to study hall with, and my social studies teacher in 8th grade was here tonight. But we moved away when I was in high school, and my wife and I chose to move back to town. I liked living here. We enjoy it here. We raised our kids here. So I come with some passion about River Falls, and deliberate passion is probably the best way, and some of the others have pointed that out as well. My background is in finance. My degree actually is in urban planning with a history and architecture minor. So I bring that to the table. Sometimes with the finance degree, it's helpful to deal with the larger projects we have in town and keep a good eye on budgets and so forth. The other thing that I bring to the table, I think, is my community involvement. I strongly believe, and I hope I've instilled in my kids, that they need to give back to the community. My involvement with the Chamber, my involvement in Rotary, and my involvement on the Sunshine Board, as well as church and the grocery store and the hardware store, and seeing people and being available to them in different forums is what I bring. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Page.
I feel my unique traits that I would bring to the table as a city council member are my youth, my passion, and my engagement and immersion in our local community. I bump elbows all day long, like I said before, with people coming and going from my office that are all members of this community, whether they reside within the borders of this city or not. They are actively engaging with this community, and I interact with them daily, and we spend far too much time talking about everything that's going on in the city and far too little time talking about teeth, but it's a lot of fun, and I learn a lot about what's going on in this community. My office is about 3 blocks that way. My house is about 1 block that way. I practically never leave this city, and it provides me with a very unique perspective. My immersion in the Kinney Corridor planning process, purely as a spectator over the last 4 years, has just been overwhelmingly educational And it is amazing the individuals that I have met and worked with through the process, both from the city of River Falls and from outside of the city, that are all actively engaged in this process. As the active city council members have already attested this evening, they have gotten more feedback about this process than any other process that they can remember or that is currently going on. And my perspective, it is not a personal agenda on this issue. It certainly is a priority for me to bring this to the table and advance it more rapidly than currently planned. But the uniqueness that I bring to the table is my passion and dedication and immersion in this community as well as that topic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This will be our final question. We will not be doing a closing statement tonight, so if there are any wrap-up comments that you would like to include in this answer, this will be it. Okay? Mr. Plunkett, excluding dam removal and related projects, what 3 projects or capital improvements would you consider to be most important at this time?
I think a critical density parking area is very important for the area by the university. In addition, if properly implemented, that can bring in revenue for the city while saving the university the expense of constructing a parking garage. Second would be working on our long-term infrastructure plan in regards to our streets and sidewalks so that we can reduce our future costs in that area while delivering better services. And the third would be to work on our zoning and planning so that we can deliver cost-effective housing for the wide variety of residents that live in our city, including many that are not currently being met. I believe that with proper planning and zoning, we can do that without the addition of city funds, that our qualified builders can deliver a product that will meet the needs of the residents of our city. Thank you very much. And as a closing statement, thank everyone up on the panel here and the audience tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
So my 3 priorities for capital projects, if I remember the question right. First big priority is a new police station / fire station. Our current one it's almost to the disrepair state where it's not functional, it's not usable anymore. So that's a very big priority, which I think is being started in the next couple years, if I remember right. Another big project is getting the state to finally come through on their word on the jug handle for Division Street and 35, so we could ease traffic there. I have a couple friends who live in developments right off of there, and they said getting back from work and getting to work in the morning is just a huge pain because there's one exit and entrance ramp. And then kind of I'm going to say last shoot for the stars goal I would like to see, maybe not in 2 years, but is have the city take on the responsibility of cable internet. I know a lot of rural communities have started getting in on internet co-ops, kind of take the power away from big companies. I know there's only a couple in River Falls, and they seem to rake us over the coals. So those are my 3 big projects I could think of.
Thank you. Mr. Toland.
Mine would be continuing on the infrastructure, repairing what we have, keep it in a good shape, building new infrastructure as we go along, to make sure we stay ahead of all that like we have so far. I want to see continued steady growth in the city, both economically and home-wise as we grow along. It helps with the economic building business parks and that'll help keep continuing to bring businesses to town and bring more money into town. Another one of mine, it would be South Main Street. We did a study on South Main Street through the Planning Commission, and so we have kind of a guideline of what we'd like that to look at as we move along in the future. So as we start developing and building out there, we have an idea of what we want it to look like, so we're not just mishmashing things together out there. you know, there's so many different things going on. It's really amazing, but those are some of the bigger things right now. Otherwise, my only kind of closing statement would just be to thank the city for making the city what it is. You guys make the city great, and it's been my honor to be your mayor for the last 6 years. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bjork.
Responsible growth. So I think the first thing we will be looking at, and we are looking at, is the fire and police building. So we have a fire hall that's in the middle of really the city, which isn't necessarily a bad location, but it's a bad location because of everything else that's around it. It was built in 1855. We have a police station that's adjacent to it that used to be the old city hall and used to be the library, and also the post office for some of us old timers that remember it at that location. But it's completely outdated and there's leaks in it, and that we have to start looking at that. We have been doing studies. We also have some maybe earmarked locations that we're fine-tuning and maybe looking forward to, but that's number one. Number two would be we have South Main. We've done the studies on that. As Mayor Tolan said, let's make sure that we do it right and build on it. If you look everything that we have in this community, all our commercial is right down Main Street. There's nothing out at Highway 65 or 35 and that. So our path is that way. Let's make sure we have a good, clean avenue continuing down South Main. The university has done a great job with the University Center, so let's add on to that. The last thing, I loved what Ben said about the parking issues. Alderman Downing brought up a good proposal a few months ago talking about parking issues that maybe we could look at. But I think what I'd add on to the third one is the jug handle at 6535 and County Road M. It's a bad situation. We need to get that cleaned up. And that's it. And thank you to everybody being here, all 8 of us, and everybody out there and everybody in TV land.
Thank you. Ms. Foster Babcock.
Thank you. So there are certainly a lot of things on the table. There is a capital investment plan. I understand from some comments that were made earlier that investing in the police and fire station and improving that situation, moving them elsewhere, rebuilding what is there. I don't know exactly what's planned, but I think that would be an appropriate investment and an important thing to do. I also believe that the corridor planning process and the investments we're going to have to make to go through the relicensing process that the council authorized are going to be some capital investments. Now, we've addressed that by saying as a council and a community that we want to do it through a public-private partnership, but there'll still be some costs to file and do studies and things that will have to be borne by the city. So those will be investments we have to make. The third thing, I think that jug handle issue sounds very interesting. It sounds like it's been an ongoing dialogue with the Department of Transportation about when we can get it fixed. And I would say if that's causing people to have accidents and potentially be injured or killed, that it'd be very, very important to fix that and find a way to improve that situation. So those would be the issues that I'd put emphasis on.
Thank you. Mr. Morissette.
Well, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it goes back to the health, safety, and welfare issues. And the 3 priorities that I think we've got are already laid out in front of us. There are already projects that are going. We have limited staff time and limited staff capacity, and to take on some of the projects right now that we want to do just isn't available. But the 3 that we are in the middle of or need to do immediately are the North Sewer Interceptor. We're in the process of fixing that and taking care of that. That is key to the north side of our town. We got to do Glen Park in 2019. That's a huge project and a huge undertaking that we want to do. And the final one is the jug handle that we've all talked about. Again, 12 accidents in the last 3 years, working with the DOT to fix that. Those are the 3 key things. I agree we need a new public safety building. We're starting that process now. That would be my 4th one if you allow me 4. That'd be my 4th one. But I think we're 4 to 5 years out by the time we get it planned and get some land acquisition and do the different things we need to do there. Just as a closing comment, I want to thank the citizens of River Falls. It's been a privilege to serve on the city council up to this point. I would appreciate your vote on April 3rd, and thank you very much again to the AAUW and Optimist Club. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Page.
Excellent. Well, 3 SIP projects that I would definitely prioritize would be the city parks. The city has already made and invested quite a bit in that planning process, and it's due to kick off in just a year or 2 here, and that's just going to be an amazing transformation for our parks that are in need of some upkeep. The North Interceptor is absolutely imperative in order to have planned and appropriate growth in our community. And then I think responsible planning for future affordable housing as well as TIDS, development of our business parks and our places for business to come, places for people to live. Absolutely paramount to build those into the capital improvement projects, to plan for them responsibly. I think that the city of River Falls just sits at this precipice of opportunity where we live at this edge of the Twin Cities metro area that is continuously expanding, and it's enveloping us. I mean, we are a part of the metro area, whether we like it or not. If you don't like it, we need to move further away from the metro area. But this isn't a problem, it's an opportunity for our community. It's an opportunity for us to grow responsibly. We just have to do a good job of planning for that growth and make sure that we are prepared to bring businesses here that will employ people that can afford houses in our home or in our community. Sorry, those were kind of my final thoughts there. Thank you all for listening this evening, for the opportunity. I'm just very excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bierstedt.
I'm going to mention something that hasn't been mentioned yet, but we're in the process, it seems always, of negotiating with the 4 townships around us on some boundary agreements. And I think we've talked a lot about planning tonight. I think the better job we can do planning here will also help them do their planning. So I think we can be a leader in that way. It's always challenging to get them to see things the way we do. I used to live out there, so I know what they're going through, but we're in a position to do some very good long-range planning. I think, again, I've said many times, the study is going to help us, but I think that's going to help them too. So continuing that planning process, I think, is really important. And then the others that have already been mentioned, fire, EMS, and police. Those are all important priorities for me moving forward. Sorry, that was 4.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You got 4? Yeah.
This concludes the City Council Candidate Forum. The City Council election is Tuesday, April 3rd. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You may register to vote and make changes to your voter registration at the polls on Election Day. You must provide proof of residency. The candidate forum will be replayed on RFC TV Channel 16 and available for viewing online at www.rfcity.org. On behalf of AAUW and the River Falls Optimist Club, along with the Community Television Channel, I want to thank the candidates and the audience for participating in this forum. Our democracy depends on citizen involvement. Please vote on April 3rd. Thank you.